Hello, world. My name is Tim Ruswick, and today I'm here with Ryan Stunkel, founder of BlipSounds, audio engineer, right? You want to tell everybody a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so basically I run BlipSounds.com. We are a sound educational platform where sound designers can learn game audio, all things video games and sounds. You can come to BlipSounds for basically. We have a YouTube channel, a website, and a free course on the website, and also are a small community or actually not so small anymore, but we have a community of sound designers on a Discord server as well. So
Sweet.
yeah.
All the links will be down in the description if you guys want to check out Ryan's stuff. But we're going to have an awesome chat about audio, life, make yourself do things. And Ryan, you don't know this, but I've been working on a new project that YouTube doesn't know about for months that is completely audioless.
No
it
way.
has no audio in it, and everybody continually asks me to do audio. So I'm happy I have you here. We're gonna get some information. we're gonna figure out how to make it happen.
Okay.
But so I want to start like how you got to where you're at, kind of how you learned audio, how you got into game dev audio, and kind of like what you like about it and all that good stuff.
Audio. So I actually started in music. So I'm a music composer firstly, that's what I became first. But then I found myself. But before that, doing music for video games, I just liked writing music, and I was like, oh, well, I also like video games. I did like a lot of level design stuff with Little Big Planet back in the day. I did a lot of game maker stuff, and then I was like, oh, well, video games music. They combine into video game music, and then I just started diving into that. And then I started doing a lot of just freelance gigs online, and eventually found myself into sound design for video games because everybody needed sound design as well as music. And honestly, I was able to market myself more as a sound designer and find more work that way. And then I was able to break into the industry eventually with BlipSounds and sound design basically. And now I get to do both music and sound design now.
Do you feel like people loop those in the same category, and should they, you think?
Music and sounds?
Yeah.
Yes and no. I think they should be together because they have to work together in a soundscape of a game. But ultimately, it's a gray area of like where they cross, where the skill sets cross between music and sound design for video games. Because you do use the same tools, but the mindset is entirely different.
I would imagine. I noticed too, because like I did my own sound design and I purchased music for Phalophobia, and I would notice since the music came in like last on top of the sounds, I would notice that when I put in certain music tracks, it would just feel muddy. Like I felt like maybe they were taking up the same like audio space, and finding ones that were like that could complement each other was actually really difficult, but it made a huge difference.
Yeah. Was it just on PC, the game?
Yeah, it was just PC.
Okay. Did you listen on like different speakers and like see if the mix sounded better?
I tried headphones. I don't know if you know this, but back in the day, I used to be a rapper.
No way.
3 rap albums. YouTube's gonna go crazy now.
That's awesome.
But yeah, so like I used to do a lot of audio stuff because I had to learn how to mix and master. And like I ran a studio out of my bedroom. I used to charge people to come in because I had like a mic set up and stuff, come and charge them, record and shit. And I learned a lot of like audio tricks that way. And one of the things I always did was like exactly what you said, listening to it a bunch of different stuff, because like it sounds way different in the car than it sounds on the speakers and it sounds in headphones.
Yeah.
Yeah, it took, I think I didn't realize this, but that was like high school days, but that would come back to me in designing the audio for Phalophobia. Like
Nice.
It was a good experience. And honestly, that's why I'm excited to talk to you, because I think audio is probably one of the most underutilized, beautiful pieces of games in like indie games, period.
Agreed. And I feel like I feel like there's a few things that a lot of game dev teams do wrong when it comes to that.
Let's talk about those. Let's dive in those.
So my first one, this is the biggest one, is when do you get your audio into a game? I say at the very beginning, actually.
Okay, so I'm already breaking the rule.
It's
Two
okay.
months in, I got no audio.
Actually, no. 2 months isn't that. Well, how long is your expected game development
It
cycle?
was going to be 3 months.
3 months. Okay.
So, yeah,
Well,
it's not anymore. It's going to be 6 months at this point, but who knows?
okay. Well, this is this. So this is what I always say for anybody that contacts me for sound design. I say, if you're going to hire me, bring me on at the very beginning, and have me look at the game and understand the game mechanics and do like all my any sort of programming and integration stuff that I need to get in at the beginning, and then you can pay me for that small period of time, and then you can wait. Let's say it's a 2-year dev cycle. You can spend the first year figuring out um, the rest of like the programming and the tech and all that, and then once you start getting assets in the game, call me back, basically. So that way they save money, but the idea is that if you're doing, because we do a lot of integration and we program the sounds in ourselves, and because we program, we also get to mix the sounds ourselves.
Cool.
Because a lot of, and this goes into, I'm kind of covering a little bit of everything that I think is wrong with a lot of game devs approach, but game developers, or I think it's really smart to use any sort of integration, and for any sound designers that you hire to know at least the basics of like a game engine and how it works, and using integration like Fmod and Wise, which I'm sure you know about. And I think using those are really important, because does your programmer know how to mix sounds in a game?
Yeah.
Like probably not. And if you have your audio person program the sounds in the game, that means they're in control of the mix of the sounds. So by giving the sound designer that kind of creative control, then you can have a better sounding game, because we talk about this a lot in BlipSounds, but we call it micro and macro sound design. Micro sound design is how an individual sound effect makes the player feel in a specific moment. So something like getting a kill streak in Overwatch would be micro sound design. But macro sound design would be how all of the sounds work together. And nobody really knows, or most game indie devs at least who are doing things by themselves, they aren't really listening to how all the sounds work together. It's like buying a bunch of assets on the asset store for Unity, and then by different publishers or different developers and such, and then or a bunch of art assets, and then combining them together into one game. And it just looks terrible. And same thing with sounds. It sounds terrible too.
So one of the things I've seen, I'm curious if this kind of draws into that. So I do a Feedback Friday thing, first Friday of every month on Twitch, where I kind of play games. And one of the things I've noticed about the sound design mix is that like a lot of players or a lot of developers, they think that game does thing, play sound. And I feel like they're missing out on a lot of those little micro, macro type of like details.
Yeah.
Like for example, if an explosion goes off way off screen, it plays in my ears like it's supposed to be right in front of me, right?
Okay.
And that like throws me off. Like I feel like I'm exploding at that point.
Sure.
Is that something you see a lot?
So is the question more so that like it's poorly mixed, or is it?
Well, what do you think about that? Do you think the positional audio is important?
Yeah, 100%.
And you think it gets missed a lot?
I think so. We actually just put out a video recently. Do you know the game Forager? It was made in Game Maker. So we actually just put out a video, and they actually messed up on their positional sounds, because they had a feedback sound for every time that you would collect an item, and eventually in the game, it's a 2D top-down, as you know. So, but every time that you collect an item, which is eventually automated later in the game, you get a feedback sound. So when every time you have something that's automated and you're collecting it, it creates a sound, so it stacks on top of itself, and you have like 10 sound of the same exact sound happening at the same exact time. And it just, first off, it should just be positional, and you should just be able to hear it from where it's coming from, whether you're on screen or off screen. But the way that it does it is it just like, it plays it stereo, like just in both ears, wherever you are on the map, no matter if it's in view or whatever. So I do think that positional sound is extremely important. And yeah.
So what kind of impact can something like that have on like a player? Like, what do you think?
Well, I think it gives them, I think that it's a game design. I think it influences the game design personally. Overwatch, for example, does a really good job of using, of mixing their sounds in a competitive space, at least. single player experience is a little bit, obviously we'll have different rules, but in Overwatch, it's really, really smart because they have enemy sounds, which are louder than any of your own sounds and any of your team sound, because the enemy sounds are the most dangerous, and you're making your decisions based off of what the enemy team is doing. And when you can only see what's in front of you in a 3D game, you have all of this behind you that you cannot see. So you have to use your ears to be able to hear it. And so being able to actually hear exactly what's going on, and being able to, because if they had made your own team sounds louder than the enemy team sounds, then all of a sudden you're not able to hear the enemy sounds, and then you're kind of screwed because you're not able to tell what's going on at certain moments in the game.
That's pretty interesting. So it's almost like a priority system of what's more important information.
That's something that we notice in a lot of competitive games is whatever's or even just single player experience, you can apply the same thing. Whatever is most dangerous on screen should make the loudest sound, because you're at risk of death. And if you don't want to die, then that thing should be the loudest. And whatever's loudest and is also positioned correctly on the screen according to the panning in your ears. If something's right here on the screen, then and it's panned to that side of the screen, then you're going to hear it. It's going to be loud, and it's going to have an animation probably flashed with it, and it's going to draw your attention immediately.
Do you think there's a design philosophy there? Do you think designers have to be aware of all this kind of stuff to make a good game, or do you think
before they start, you mean, kind of?
Yeah.
It's. I think so. I think I think you can get away with not doing it. It can help, but I don't think it needs to necessarily dictate your game design. I think it matters more on the micro level in sound design. For example, I worked on a game some time ago that had a lot of dinosaurs in them, so I had to make a bunch of creature sounds. But the creature sounds were, how do I put this? The animations needed a little bit of work, and they weren't super realistic, and they didn't help the way, because I had to make my sounds to the animations. The sounds suffered because of the story that the animations told, in the sense of if we had made the sounds first and they made the animation to the sound, it actually would have been better, because the sounds are what's important when you hear a creature roar, because that's the fear, that's the personality behind it. So to answer your question, kind of it can matter, and it's really uncommon to make the sound then the animation first, but there's some games that have done it and it's worked very, very, very well.
I find myself, and maybe this is just because I'm a solo developer, but and two, I have a little bit of history with audio, kind of not anything professional, but just dabbling. I find myself when I put in the sounds, I usually have to modify something in the game, almost always, especially for important sounds. And maybe that's just because I'm obsessing over it, but usually I'll find I'll get a sound that I like, right? And then, but it doesn't quite match up to the animation.
Yeah.
So either sometimes I'll mess with the sound, but if I really like the sound, I'll change the animation, or I'll change the timing.
That's interesting, actually, and that's something I don't think I've ever run into, or that's not true. I've run into it before, but I've never actually convinced a game developer to actually change.
I would imagine that's a lot harder with a team, right?
Yeah,
convincing the hierarchy of what's more important than this thing. And
right.
Got their own ownership of all their own work. There's a lot of dynamics there. I think that's honestly, that's one of the things I love about solo game development, is the fact that I have all these different interests: art, sound, programming, and I kind of mix in between them all. It keeps me interested.
Do you think that, so what would you, there's obviously it's harder to do it by yourself, but it's also, I'm sure, more fulfilling and you learn a lot more. Do you think that the trade-off is worth it for you to get to do everything yourself?
I think, so I've actually went over this. So one of Phylophobia was one of the hardest things I ever did in my life, getting that out the door, because it had so much like baggage and emotional bullshit and like programming and years, and then like the, you know, the bar gets raised and like it's not good enough, it's never. So like if you would ask me before I released that game, like, would you ever make a solo game again? I'd probably be like, no way, no way. But then I immediately started on another one. So I think I realize now I enjoy solo development. I really, really do. I enjoy making a game all by myself. But I also have a community that is giving me constant feedback, and I'm streaming it. So I'm kind of making the game with them.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like if I didn't have that, I would get really, really lonely and like want to work with people.
Sure.
But because I have like the stream community, it's kind of cool. But I also realized that like from a business perspective, maybe this is way more than you're asking for.
No.
But for like a business perspective, Philophobia launched on itch, right? It hasn't launched on Steam yet. I am so burnt out on that project. I don't want to touch it. I wish that I could like hire somebody to port it to Steam, like without me messing with it. But because I used Construct 2 in a weird engine, I can't find like anybody to hire to port it. So like stuff like that, I wish I had a team for it. Like once I figure out, I think sometime in the future, 5 or 10 years, whatever, I might have a studio where I do the prototyping and figure out what the thing is, and then have the team build it, right? Because I feel like that's the best part, is like building all the pieces to get the thing. But then there's all the like dark work that comes after that and all the boring stuff.
I've been wanting to get into game dev lately, or more lately than I already am. I want to like start doing a game every 2 weeks or once a month or something like that. Just something small and something that I can like take on a new challenge to like learn a new system. Then I'm hoping that eventually my skills will combine after each game to like make something way cooler in the end. But
it compounds. Game jams are really, really effective for that.
Yeah, oh for sure. But one thing I always think about is like, okay, I feel like I would be the person. I feel like I'm the kind of person that would create a bunch of systems together, and then I would probably create like, you know, the first 90% or the 90% of your game takes 10% of the time kind of thing. I think I would make I would make the 90% of the game, and then there's a lot of just like, you have to be in. It's so much work to be able to like troubleshoot a game properly. You actually made a really good video, the cut it in half video. You know what I'm talking about?
That saved me so many times. That's like my life philosophy.
Dude, I really appreciate that video, because I think that because I'm always like, oh, I could make this game, I can make this game, and like, oh, I could add all this crazy stuff, but then I'm like, wait, Tim's video, cut it in half, and it's like, just make something simple. Like it can still be fun and simple.
Yeah. And I think it's like one of the things, because I've lost count of how many games I've made now. It's near 30, something like that. And I've noticed that like, and most of them are game jam games, so they're like smaller stuff, but I've gotten really good at that front loading part, like the first part, figuring out what the game is and making the thing. And it seems like almost always my default is like, I want to build an MMORPG battle royale, crazy systems level like game, right? Like that's what I always want to do. Like for me, it's actually story. I love telling stories, but story like can be it can take so much time, especially like in a 48-hour type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But I almost always have to say, no, cut it in half. Like whatever you think you can do, cut it in half. And that seems to work out almost perfectly every time. Like even when I'm like, okay, I can't make the MMO, let me make a platformer, it's gonna have this and this, is like, no, cut it in half, boom. Then it's like next level, like, oh no, that's I'm gonna have extra time. That's when it's good. That's when, like I was saying, like this new project was supposed to be a 3-month project, and it's not gonna be a 3-month project. It could have been, but I just decided to give it the extra time, because sometimes you do need the extra time.
Yeah, I think that a lot of games. Anytime I work on a game and people ask me what I'm working on right now and like when it's supposed to release, I'm like, yeah, it's supposed to be like September, but it's probably going to be April.
when it's done.
Yeah, it's basically when it's done. Game development is too unpredictable and stressful to really know what's going on.
Unlike any other medium on the planet, because it's all mediums on the planet.
It's
everything.
It is.
And there's so many intricacies, especially like I think one of the hardest things about solo is the lack of, like, you don't have that bouncing board for ideas. You don't have that shared vision. You kind of get lost in your head. And like for me, it's a lack of clarity. And I get lost sometimes. Like, I don't even know what I'm making. Like, I don't know where I'm going or what I'm doing. And like, I don't have anybody there to kind of like ground me and no, this is the thing, or like fight me on decisions. They're just like, oh, cool. Well, now it's a stealth game. Now it's a, whatever. And they'll just go with it. And it's complicated. I'm curious, do you like making games solo, or are you more of a team type of dude?
I think I'm now a team kind of person. My version of my story of like the hardest thing I've ever created in my life is BlipSounds, for sure. Creating BlipSounds I did all by myself. That was the hardest thing I've ever done, but also the most rewarding. And after doing that alone, I think I wouldn't ever do anything alone again.
Yeah, I agree. It's got business, dude. I advocate partners a lot. Well, because I haven't talked about this a lot on my channel, but I worked on a marketing company for like 5 years, and I hustled and grind that shit, and I really didn't get anywhere. And then I met this guy that had done commercials for like Dodge and Scion and all these big companies. And like, I had done digital marketing, I had done SEO, I had done ads, I had done all this stuff. And we came together, we partnered up, and our company took off. It took off. We had all kinds of problems. We fought all the time. We argued all the time. We ended up actually going our separate ways, and it was chaotic. And I didn't agree with anything that he said, but it was like something about both of us together was like 10x what either one of us could do on our own.
Yeah.
And that always stuck with me. Like even though when I look back and I say I don't want to go back there at all, because I did not get along with the guy. It was so stressful. But it was like, I don't know what it was, but just having another human being there that was halfway competent in their own way, that like can amplify what you do. And I would imagine, especially like design stuff is probably the same. I don't really have, like I said, I'm a sole developer, so I don't have a whole lot of experience on that end. But
sure. Yeah, I think for me, like I was literally just thinking about this today, like just what my mindset is now when I'm creating something new. I'm like, I'm able to actually visualize how much work it's going to take. And I think it's really just a quality of life kind of thing. Like, am I going to be able to, it's the work-life balance. That's what I'm trying to nail down now. I'm trying to get down, like, okay, if I'm working this much, or if I'm taking on this many projects, how many hours am I working a week? And then also, am I going to be able to do the things in my life that I feel continues to make me happy and healthy and all those things? Because like even small stuff like, okay, I need to make foods that I enjoy and are also healthy. Just something as small as that is a quality of life thing that I need to make sure I'm doing on a daily basis. I need to make sure I'm getting enough sleep. Need to make sure I'm getting enough water. I need to make sure I have social interaction. And there's just so many things that stack up in this kind of bubble of who I am as a person. And it's not just work. And I thought for a while it was just work. But then I realized, okay, it's more than just this. And I need to consider a lot more when I'm diving into something new.
How old are you, if you don't mind me asking?
I'm 25.
Okay. I think you're ahead of the curve, because like I'm 30 and I feel like I've just learned all that stuff.
Yeah.
A year or two. Like I've started like, okay, I can do this thing, but it's going to take this much time. And I compare those results to this other path of doing this thing and like whether it's worth it. And then like, is it going to make me happy? I'm going to be frustrated. Like where's it going to be?
Yeah.
I think that's important, especially when you work for yourself. Like,
yes. One thing I'm trying to experiment, sorry to cut you off. The one thing I'm experimenting with now is I'm trying to, I work from home. I kind of want to get an office because I feel like I want to separate my work and my life into different areas. Like I want to make home. I want to make that just like for Ryan. It's bizarre. It's a bizarre way to look at it, but
I used to, for a while, when before I could like afford an office and stuff, there was this place in Santa Monica that was called Real Office Centers or something like that, but it was like they had a bunch of startups where you could just like pay a monthly fee and just go in there and work. You could sit at any table, you could go anywhere, and you could use all their facilities and stuff. That was pretty cool. That was like
nice.
a place to go to work. And
Do you what's your computer setup?
what do you mean?
Uh, I'm spoiled by 2D monitor or two monitors, two
Oh
or more
yeah.
monitors, and I can't. And it's hard for me to like work
That
at a
was the
place.
downside. That
Yeah.
was bringing the laptop.
Okay.
Some people legit lug in monitors every day. I watch them, but they had like offices too where you could like rent a desk and keep your stuff there.
Okay.
But it was like kind of like a shared workspace kind of thing where everybody was just doing their own thing. And there's a lot of startup-y people there too, which is cool because they had like events and you could like meet people.
Nice.
Yeah, it actually was a huge quality of life improvement for me.
That's good.
Yeah,
what was the like? There's a fly in here. It's been annoying the crap out of me. For you, what was the? Because I'm debating on whether to do it or not, and I do have the money, but I also like know it's like, okay, do I put more money into my editor at BlipSounds who helps edit the videos and such, or do I put it into myself for quality of life to make myself work better? It's a tough balance for me to like figure out what to put. I guess this is just like an uncharted territory more than anything.
You know, the way that I justified it to myself, because I thought the same, because I lived downtown LA and it was in Santa Monica and I drove a Dodge Challenger. So that was a 45-minute drive there and back and good traffic, ton of gas, ton of time, ton of like, you know, the office, it was like $350 a month plus the gas, plus all the wear in the car, plus, you know, so I was like, oh, I can work for here for free. Why would I need to? Yeah. The way that I did it is like, okay, every month I'm going to get a client to pay for this, right? Like I'm going to use this as like a client generating thing. And it actually worked out really well. It paid for itself over and over and over again.
Okay.
And that was doing marketing at the time, which was pretty much every company in there needed some sort of marketing. But like, yeah, but I was like super antisocial too. So that was actually really hard for me to do. But it was like, that was how I forced myself to be social and talk to people, but also like force myself to like make the decision.
Yeah, that's smart though. That's a good, like, if I'm doing this, I'm going to make sure that you just compromise with your own time.
Yeah, I mean, too, like you gotta, like, I've realized that my quality of work and my speed of work goes significantly up when I'm happy and generally like not irritable, not tired, not, you know, any of these things. So I've started to realize the actual benefit of that. Like if I go to a Starbucks for 3 hours by the beach and sit on my laptop, technically like I used to go like, okay, it's a waste of time to drive there. It's less productive because it's laptop versus dual screen monitors. It's, you know, restricting because I don't have a mouse or whatever. But I realized that like, okay, hearing the birds and the beach and all that has a different effect on me.
Yeah.
It like it loosens me up, it relaxes me. And if I can pair the Starbucks trip with the right kind of work, for example, like writing a book instead of designing some crazy thing that's going to require monitors, figuring out those relationships works really, really well.
I think that's smart. And that's what I start. Sorry, there's a space. Where do you live, by the way?
I'm in Florida right now, Sarasota.
Oh, I'm in Florida. I'm in Orlando.
Sure. Oh, no way. We're like 2 hours from each other.
Dude, oh my God. That's crazy. We're going to talk about that afterwards. That's crazy that you live in Florida. So there's a space in Orlando called the Orlando Game Space. Have you heard of Indie?
I've heard of both of those, actually.
Okay, so the Orlando Game Space is, like, I just pop up there, like, once a week to work there. And that's currently what I'm doing now, is I work from I work with I just bring my laptop and I'm like, okay, I'll write a BlipSound script. I'm going to apply for these speaking gigs, this things that I can just do in a single browser on my computer, just get that knocked out, basically. and I think that just like doing that once a week, like going somewhere other than my home office goes a long way.
Yeah.
Really.
Another effect that I found, maybe, I don't know if you've had a similar effect, but when I leave and I go do something like that, when I get home, I feel more energized. So then like I want to work more when I get home and I have my setup and stuff now. Whereas like, I think it's just leaving the house. Cause like there are some days where like, especially here, cause I work from home, I get up, I get on the computer, I may get off for food or whatever, bathroom, get back, like, and then I'm like in the same space like the whole day. And you do 2 or 3 days of that, it starts getting like I don't even notice it. So we're like, oh, I gotta get out of the house. But it's like I notice an unhappiness creeping in. I don't know how else to describe it. Just like
that makes sense. No, I'm feeling that right now a little bit.
Yeah, it like kind of creeps in on me. I don't know what it is. So just getting out, sunshine, walks with the dog.
Yeah, no, that's great. No, I mean, summertime in Florida is a little tougher, I guess.
Yeah, you gotta plan if you're gonna walk outside, you gotta plan which times you're gonna do it,
and also which direction you're going to go, because you can just look in the clouds and be like, oh, no, not that way. That's funny. I think that's, so I was just in the kind of like, so I was just in I just took a trip to Asia actually, and I had some time to walk around Tokyo a little bit. I thought that I didn't. It's the same exact thing that you said to yourself. I said before I left for the trip, because it was actually a business trip. I went to Pakistan to do a speaking gig, and then right after that, I went to Tokyo just for like a small vacation. But right before I left like in general from Florida, I was just like, I don't want to go on this trip. I wish I could cancel it. I have stuff to do for BlipSounds here. I'm going to have to catch up on work when I get home. And then I got to Pakistan, had a blast, went to Tokyo. I needed that trip so much, man. Like, and the revelations that I had from going to Tokyo, I just realized how little time I give my own thoughts. Like how much time do I actually give how much time do I spend alone with my own thoughts? Like there are so many distractions that I have on a daily basis. I'm too close to, I'm like this to BlipSounds. There's YouTube videos, there's Netflix, there's so much stuff to like, that can keep me occupied all the time whenever I want. There's no shortage of distractions. But when I was in Tokyo, I was like, okay, I'm walking. I'm just alone with my own thoughts. I'm walking like 5 to 9 miles, and like I need to do that more in Florida. I need to do that at home more. I need to make time for like my own thoughts, and like what you said, like going around and walking outside for a little bit, like getting some fresh air, like that little stuff like that goes a long way.
Yeah, I didn't, like I said, it took me years to understand the value of it, and I still don't think I've fully tapped into it. But I've realized that just like when I do a short walk in the beginning of the day, half hour, it's a better day. Like it just, I don't know, maybe it's some kind of universe force, maybe it's placebo, I don't know, but I think little things like that are some of the things that you kind of learn as you kind of get older. Like when you're younger, you're trying to do all this crazy stuff and you're like, oh, that's a great idea. But then you start realizing that you're like, hey, your body's not going to last forever. Shit can go wrong.
Yeah.
Shit can break. Your mind can, not be the thing you want it to be. And like, especially with the work thing, I think like for me, one of the things I did was I realized that I was a workaholic a lot of times because I felt like I was lazy and like, I don't even know how to describe this. Like I spent a lot of time being lazy and like, then that made me feel guilty. So then I would be like, turn into like a workaholic. But then I kind of realized that like the workaholism was kind of like being on the hamster wheel and like not really getting anywhere. It was almost a form of laziness in itself.
Yeah.
Of just like, I just want to throw time at the problem. Like, forget thinking, forget any of this, just throw the time at it. And I realized that like taking time away, like even a little walk, like design problems, especially if I'm having a design issue in a game or something like that, taking a walk, taking a shower, something like that, just disconnecting. can like really tremendously help.
Yeah. I triggered something in my brain that I wanted to ask you about. Yeah, there's so much. I feel like taking care of yourself. Just all the little stuff matters. It stacks up. What did you say? You said like you're talking about your like going for a short walk, like improves your day. Yeah. You know what? I remember now. The work life balance thing is very. I totally can sympathize with like the laziness and then hamster wheel, and like you would go back and forth on it, right? Yeah. That's what I'm going through on a day-to-day, on a week-by-week basis. Like last week I got back and I worked all week, and then I'm like burnt out this week a little bit more. But like it's it's the finding like the day-to-day balance is so tough to.
It is. And I remember like for a long time I didn't like I'll never forget there was one moment where my sister was living with me for a little while when I was in LA, and I was working on a project, and I told her about my new project, and she was like, "Oh, is this going to be the one you finish, or is this going to be one you work on for 3 days and never touch again and don't sleep?" And I was like, I remember like thinking like, holy shit, that's like what I've done with like every project. I work on it nonstop and like don't sleep and like burn myself out, and then I never touch it again.
Yeah.
And to her, it was just like, oh, clearly that's what you're doing. Like all these projects.
But you're too close to the puzzle to.
Yeah. And then ever since then, I've kind of looked at it, like, especially in the last couple of years, I think I've kind of treated my life like a giant experiment.
That's good.
Yeah. Like I try stuff and see how it makes me feel. Cause I realize that pattern of like working way too much and then not wanting to work at all, and then work, like that was a cycle for me, right? And it turns out that like the working way too much thing was causing the not wanting to work at all thing. Like they're connected. Like I always just thought I was like that. I thought it was like a pattern, but
Yeah.
it's like a form of burnout almost. Like your brain is like a laser, and if you aim it at something for too long, you can burn the thing, right?
Yeah.
Like it needs off time, right? It needs to recharge. It needs to like chill out. Maybe that's a bad analogy. I don't know. But like
that makes sense. I started doing something with my work in BlipSounds because I have 3 different areas that I work in with BlipSounds. I have the game audio training series, which is the monthly subscription model. I have the YouTube channel, and then I have, what's the third one? Even just those 2 alone, though, the YouTube channel and the game audio training series.
One of those, I would imagine, is probably.
Oh yeah, but it's really nice because I focus on YouTube for 1 week, and then I take a week off of YouTube and I work on the other thing.
Yeah, that's gonna be cool.
I thought about. I like brainstormed that. And I was like, oh, that could actually work because there's 2 things, like the switching from. You probably do. You probably have this a little bit, like because you have like a community and like a whole thing going on, but like if I have like switching gears from one thing to another mentally, like even in game development, like if you're a solo dev going from programming to art, it's hard.
Yeah.
Like the mindset change is really, really hard. And I find myself, if I'm able to just focus on YouTube for a week straight, I get so much done, as opposed to like, okay, I'm going to do like Thursday is my YouTube day. Now it's like, okay, no, this entire week is YouTube, and I get 5 times as much done now.
Do you have a way that you kind of organize it? Do you just pick a day for a thing? Or?
No. So I basically say at the beginning of the week, this is YouTube week. This is the game audio training series week. I'm doing nothing but thinking about the game audio training series. This is something new too. So this is like, I'm experimenting with it. So I'll keep you posted on how that goes.
Because, okay, before the first video that went up before this one, I hadn't posted a video in 3 months, right? And that just kind of snuck up on me. It wasn't intentional. It wasn't like, hey, I'm going to take a break for 3 months. But it was like, oh, I missed a week. I don't really have a schedule, whatever. 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 5 weeks, 10 weeks.
Yeah.
Oh, shit.
Yeah.
I gotta do that. But part of the reason was like, I'm spread in like so many different directions. And I kind of missed that, to be honest, to be able to focus. And I think I really need to do that. Like I need to cut some stuff out because like when I was focusing on YouTube, video every day, nonstop, boom, 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 like pure growth. You know, I was connected with the community. It was like that was the thing, and it worked super effective. But then the second you add all these other pieces in, and I'm kind of going back and forth everywhere, it just like stuff gets lost. Like YouTube literally got lost, and it would pop into my head like once or twice a week or something, but it just got lost.
What did you add to it that made it lost, do you think?
So near the end of the Phallophobia development, I was streaming full time, 6 hours a day, 6 days a week, because I was finishing the game, kind of crunch period kind of thing. And then after the game, I kind of cut that schedule down, but I realized like that schedule kind of, I don't know, like I think part of the internal drive for YouTube was to connect with people. You know, like I want to post videos because I want to connect with other human beings. But I think Twitch kind of filled that void in me. And then YouTube kind of was no longer needed for that.
Interesting.
Like if I'm just thinking of purely like what drives me, and I'm gonna be honest, like that's probably part of it. But then too, like I had bigger ambitions, right? Like there's so much stuff that I said to myself, okay, Phallophobia has to be done first. And then I'll do that. And then I'll do that. And then I'll do that. So then Phallophobia gets done. And then we got all this stuff. Like I have a book 80% written. I have a course that I'm working on. I have the community needs like some rework. We need to rework our rules and how all that stuff works.
I don't think that's a bad thing though. Those are bad things to like add into your.
No, they're all good and they all need to be done. But the lack of focus, I think, kills the productivity in any direction. Like I almost, like having done this for the past couple months, I almost feel like rather than juggling it all, I actually feel like your method might be better to pick a week or two and say, this is the thing for this, and everything else drops. No Twitch, no YouTube, no nothing. Just do this. And then pick another thing.
It is tricky. Where is my... I actually wrote it down because it's tricky because you still have week to week to do, or day to day, or things to do on a weekly basis that like streaming on Twitch once a week is very important to do if that's like what your audience expects, because you want to be able to keep up with that. Oh man, I wrote it down. Okay, yeah, because I have, let's see. I wrote it all out. Yeah, I guess it's not too. Yeah, I feel like if you can figure out like, I think when it comes to like the things you have to do on a weekly basis, like maybe Twitch streaming isn't the best example because that's if you are the personality of the business, if you're the face of it, then you should be the one streaming. But if you're doing something like, if you're doing something like you have to get a thumbnail every week or something like that, I feel like that's something that this is where delegation comes in a little bit more.
Right.
I feel like that's the direction that I choose to go for stuff like that.
Yeah, I think there comes a point in a business where like you have to stop working in the business, start working on the business.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the problem is like right now, at least for me, like I'm stuck.
It takes time to transition out of that.
Yeah.
I feel.
And like eventually I would love to get there. But
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious about, because I see all the Post-it notes and stuff like that. How do you organize what you need to do and all that?
Yeah, so I guess this is my first time I'm actually like showing this on camera actually.
Deep dive.
Got the Zelda poster. Okay, so the top board is actually like what I'm doing on a month-to-month basis. So like June, you see there's like the little, it says June, July, August on like the written in marker. Then underneath those are like what I plan to do in those months on like a macro level. And then on the bottom there, could see our conversation with Tim Ruswick over there.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and then on the this here is where the whiteboard is that I schedule that on a week-to-week basis. So I just have a bunch of sticky notes, and sticky notes are so useful for me because if I don't get to something one day, I can just be like,
move it.
Yep.
I'm interested because I was kind of using Google Calendar like that, but then I also have the sticky note app. I wonder if the physical feedback of the sticky note might be a better idea.
I think it is. It's tough when you're working online too, because I have a team of people that are not in the same city. So it's like Trello is a beautiful thing, but I also have to write it out. It's redundant, but it's just communication and personal need, basically.
I mean, it's not. I don't think it's redundant if it has some like effect on you, right? Like, and
Yeah.
I noticed that too because I have Post-it notes sitting here too. I like to the really important stuff sticked on the front of my monitor, like
Yeah.
it gets in front of everything that I'm doing.
Yeah.
And they'll be like this, but I end up like I have the note app that just has them all over my desktop. But
True.
I like how you're doing it. So how far in advance do you plan stuff?
Not very far. I forgot to mention. I don't know if I mentioned this as well, but like this is like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So I do it on a week-to-week basis. So like I plan a week in advance usually.
But you have like July, August, and all that. Like
that's pretty vague. I'm pretty loose on that. Yeah. I like to think like, okay, this is when we're doing this, and this is when this is happening. But I'm not too strict on myself with that. I'm more strict on like the week-to-week stuff because much like game development, I don't know what's going to happen in the future.
Do you tend to use deadlines for stuff?
It depends. Because every month we try to release the game audio training series, which is our subscription, and we just release it for 5 days at a time. So I try to release that once a month for 5 days, just so that people can pick it up and we get more sales and such. So there's like monthly stuff that we keep up with, and that I don't remember the original question actually.
I don't either, but it's good information.
You asked what was the. I don't remember. Go ahead.
If you're busy listening. No, it's good, dude. I really am enjoying this conversation because like, I think this is something, especially like game developers, I've noticed there's a huge population of people that are creators, not even just make games, right? They make music, they make whatever, but they kind of do it alone.
Yeah.
And they've come to the internet to find other people that like have done the thing too. And I think a lot of, at least like especially with my channel, a lot of the videos on my channel talk about like the motivational struggles of like humans, I think.
Yeah.
Especially for being like a solo creative or even like a creative that like, because like for you have a team, but like you're still alone at home.
Yeah.
Like that's still so even though you got people you're working with, it's still kind of like psychologically it could be the same thing, right?
Yeah. No, for sure.
Isolating. How do you deal with some of those pressures?
Which ones in particular? Like,
like
relying on a team or like?
Do you feel like you need the social interaction?
Yes, 100%.
So how do you take care of that part of it?
I have roommates, which I love, and they're awesome, and they are very much people that I value in my life. They're very they think the same way as me, like creatively and like same sense of humor, and they're very down to earth as well. So I'm very lucky to have that. Like I said, I try to go to the Orlando Game Space, which is basically a place where all game devs go. There's a bunch of office space for game developers and tables and such. So I try and go out once a week. I try to see. I only work on weekdays. I will almost never work on weekends. And that's where I get to hang out with people. Sorry, what'd you say?
Do you think that's an important part of like the self-improvement
100%.
book.
I believe in contrast strongly and dynamics. I think that you need the yin yang. I think you need the on and off switch. I think you need everything to. You need to work 5 days and then take 2 days off. And sometimes I'm actually thinking of changing it to work 4 days and take 3 days off. I'm just experimenting, honestly, but like I think that there's the whole work-life balancing that we talked about earlier is hitting me hard, and I want to figure out what it is for me. And I think everybody's different, and I think it's a matter of finding the pieces and then fitting them together. So that's the current journey I'm on right now to figure that out.
So you don't think 16 hours a day, 7 days a week is sustainable?
16 hours a day? No, I don't.
I don't need it. Like I remember when the whole phylophobia thing, because I called it crunch period for phylophobia, but it was 6 hours a day.
It was crunch period for like,
yeah,
18 months of development.
I mean, it was interesting because like I when I said the word crunch, like a lot of people had this like notion of like you have to work 12, 16 hours a day. You have to like every waking hour needs to be on the thing. And like, I did not treat that game like that at all. Like, obviously it was a priority, right? You can't work 6 days a week on something like that. But it was only for like a month and a half. And like, it was only 6 hours a day. And like, I didn't work on it outside of stream at all.
Yeah.
You know what's interesting about that is after Phylophobia shipped, I missed that. I missed it. I was like, I want to work because it was like, I think it was just the routine of it that I got so used to doing.
Yeah.
And I think that wouldn't have been possible without the deadline too, because just like everything had to be wrapped up and there was always work to do. And like literally.
Were you only answering to yourself, or did you have investors or anything?
No, it was just me.
Okay. Wow.
But I had missed, it was supposed to launch on the February 10th, like near Valentine's Day.
That's a lot of discipline to be able to tell yourself like deadline, and have it only be yourself.
You know what helped though is the community.
That's good. Okay.
Like that was the difference is like 4 years ago without a community would never be able to make that deadline.
Yeah.
But like putting myself in potentially embarrassing positions, right, tremendously helps me. So like when I make announcements, especially being like the game dev guy running Game Dev Underground with I have a video #finish it, like that's my whole thing. Yeah. If I didn't finish it, if I didn't do it, if I like missed the deadline, yeah, that'd make me feel stupid. So like that was like a huge driver. But at the same time, it was like this, I refused to do like the 12 or 16 because like I just felt like it would destroy me. And I actually felt like it would be less productive.
It is, definitely. I think that if you don't give yourself the time to take those walks or to get food or to shower, like that sounds silly to like even forget about it, but yeah. It's so easy to get caught up in your work and want to keep moving forward and make progress. But I think you have to experience that to really see. You have to experience both sides of it. You have to be able to. Now I'm starting to see that I can work 5 hours a day, and I think it's better that way actually than to work the full. Even 8 hours a day is too much. I think like the 8 hours, 5 days a week. It's too much work.
I find like 4 or 5 is like my perfect time. Like I can stay in the flow. I can do a bunch of stuff and then disconnect.
Yeah, I think that's one thing I need to discipline myself to do better too. Is I've been talking about this for a while. I need to create an app, or not create an app. I need to use one of those apps that blocks you from doing anything other than like certain websites and such. Because I will go on YouTube and I will lose myself so quickly.
Block the Game Dev Underground channel and you'll be fine.
Exactly, because all I watch is Tim Ruswick all the time.
I mean, it's
been 3 months, so like I can't.
You ran out of videos.
Yeah.
No, dude, I feel you. I don't know. Have you ever used one of those? Have you ever tried one of those?
No, I never have. I'm interested in it though, because I'm also a big like mental game kind of guy. I really like to believe in my own mental ability and it's hard to just be like.
Yeah, I'm laughing because
But lately I'm like, no, I can't. Like,
yeah, dude, I've given up. And I'm telling you, the only reason I've been able to do anything that I've been able to do is like hacking myself. Like the self-awareness of knowing that I'll do a certain thing in a certain situation allows me to like hack how and when I end up in a situation. For example, streaming. The main reason streaming I've kind of kept it up this so long is because of what you just said. I can't go on Netflix while everybody's watching me.
Yeah.
Like,
that's funny. Yeah.
like the pressure of like I gotta keep working like while I'm here.
Yeah.
It's got like this Pomodoro type of thing built in of like, okay, we got 4 hours and people are watching me, and it's like pressure. And yeah, like I talk to chat and we have fun, but like that's kind of like my hack to work on my game, because I don't really work on my game outside of that. But it's like
that's funny.
It's pretty productive in that 3 times a week, 4 hours a slot. And same thing with like YouTube, dude. Like I felt like when I was in the groove of like the daily videos, getting the comments where people were like, Tim, I wake up every day and I watch your videos, like my morning routine, like the thing. And like knowing, like I would tell myself, that guy, he's going to wake up and there's not going to be a Tim Ruswick video. And he's going to be upset, right?
Yeah.
Or like people will be like, oh, it's the last thing I watch before I go to bed or whatever. That like after doing it and after getting people to expect it, like it was really, really effective. And it was like, and same thing with Photophobia. Like I kind of hacked myself to complete that game by like putting it out there and like letting people know. And like even, especially like, so much stuff. Like I remember I announced that I was going to do a revenue video before that. And so everybody was asking about that over and over again. So there was no way I couldn't launch the game because everybody wanted to know how much revenue I made.
Yeah. Oh, that's funny.
Yeah. So like, honestly, that's my secret is like, I literally I'm self-aware enough to understand that I'm a lazy motherfucker if you let me be. And I hack myself into positions where I can't be.
You mentioned Pomodoro. Have you ever actually tried Pomodoro?
Yes.
That's how I did BlipSounds.
Works really well. I still feel like, so for me, it works best when I literally have to go somewhere in like an hour, right? Like I have a thing I have to do and I have an hour and I can sit down and Pomodoro for that hour. If I have to make a fake timer, it can work. Like if I get myself in the mindset, but most of the time, like I'm cheating. I'm like, it's not real. I think streaming works even better though, because like it's like a real thing. I feel like that I can't back out of in a way. But it's been super effective for me. Like I wouldn't have been able to do stuff without it.
I think I tried to, like, when I started BlipSounds, I was living with my parents. And I said to myself, if I'm going to be working for myself, I'm going to work as if I'm employed. So I was like, okay, 8 hours, 5 days a week, and working weekdays. I'm not working on weekends. And I burnt out hard. Because I expected myself to, in Pomodoro, you're like, okay, as soon as you open up a tab for Netflix or whatever, nope, you close it right away. Like as soon as it pops into your head, you close it right away. It's a very like self-discipline based approach to to productivity, and it works so well. But now but after like experiencing that, I realize, okay, more like 4 hours a day.
Oh yeah. Like if you do 2 to 4 Pomodoros a day, you get way more done than like an 8 hour.
So much done. Oh my gosh. Yeah, for sure.
We should probably clarify for those of you that don't know what a Pomodoro is. It's basically when you
it's a tomato. That's all you need to know.
Yeah, you just sit a tomato, you sit it on your desk and you look at it.
Yeah.
You concentrate your work into existence.
Yeah.
It's where you use a timer, basically. And actually I don't know if you've seen these. These are timer cubes.
Ooh.
So it's got a timer. All I do, it's got 30, 60 minutes. I put it on its side, and this has got a 15-minute. It starts a 15-minute timer.
Oh wow, I've never seen that. That's cool.
If I put it on 5, it starts a 5-minute timer. Put it on 60. So it's another way that I've hacked myself is if I can think about it and debate whether or not to do a Pomodoro, I don't do a Pomodoro.
I'm actually going to get a physical timer now because I've been doing it on my phone, but I feel like a physical timer would go along.
It's so crazy. It's like that. You read that book, The 5-Second Rule?
I know the 5-second rule.
I mean, that's a different 5-second rule. I feel like if you drop toast face down,
right? Right.
That's not the same thing.
You can't eat it again unless it's been 5 seconds.
Right. But there's another 5-second rule. It basically says anytime you're resistant to doing anything, you count back from 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and you just do it.
Okay.
It goes into all kind of scientific research on why it works. Like it's a brain interrupt. It's backwards. You're not actually counting. So it's like you have to concentrate on the numbers. Like it's a ritual, like all kinds of stuff. But I've realized that, like, especially, like I said, if I have to sit down and think about, should I do a poem? Should I watch? Like, I feel like my laziness gets the best of me. But if I have this right next to me and I go, boom, 60 minutes, let's go. It like,
cool.
There's
like
something
that.
about that just can like trigger.
The physical act of like.
Yeah. And like, if I have to open my phone, it ruins it. Like if I have to go timer, boom, 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 app
that's
open,
fair.
It's
not in front of you. It's not on your desk. I feel like that's why writing things helps me so much, because I can actually like, I'm physically writing it out, and that's why I try and write it the day that I do it, and that's why I started like writing on a new sheet of paper, or a new just like page of like of a notebook or whatever, just like, okay, August 7th is it? August 8th. These are the things I'm doing. I just literally copy it from my sticky notes, and then just like because I wrote it down, I'm like, okay, that's in my brain now. Like I wrote those down literally, and that's what I'm doing today.
I've read that there's like a science to like you're literally taking your hand and you're making symbols that your brain recognizes as a thing, and it kind of makes it more real.
Yeah, physical action goes a long way. Like actually, like the game audio training series with BlipSounds. It's built entirely around creating. Like if you aren't creating something, you aren't truly experiencing something. You can like the downtime to like think about something and brainstorm, incredibly important, but nothing means anything until you actually physically do it.
I agree. I have a rule that I create more than I consume, always.
Yeah. I had one thing I wanted to ask you, actually. You mentioned you had to hack your brain. Have you read what's it called? This book, Everything is Fucked?
No, but that sounds like a great book.
Have you seen? Highly recommend this book. It's excellent. He basically talks about how his name is Mark Manson. And he talks about how you have the emotional side of your brain, and then you have the logical side of your brain, which is obviously like the left and right hemispheres. I'm sure everybody knows that. Your emotional side drives your brain, but your logical side is just like, oh God, like, so you have to the logical brain has to trick the emotional brain into doing what you want, because you can be like everybody's gone through this. You say to yourself, why do I keep eating these cupcakes? Why do I keep eating Cheetos? Like, this is not healthy for me. Why am I just sitting here watching Netflix? Why am I doing all these things? But I feel like the logical brain, it's really interesting because it talks about how you have to your logical brain has to negotiate with the emotional brain and like bargain with it to be like, okay, if you do this thing for 10 minutes, then you can watch an episode of Dexter or whatever.
You know what's interesting is like in game design, one of the things I realized is that when you design a system, right, you make in Forager is a perfect example, right? Like you break bricks or whatever, you get coins, whatever. Players are going to find the most efficient system, right?
Yes.
They're going to find the thing that they can do to get the most gold or the most whatever. But sometimes it's not always the most fun thing to do. That's not the most emotionally satisfying thing to do.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's grinding, like in World of Warcraft. What do? You go kill the little crabs 1,000 times to get the XP, right? You just do that over and over and over again, and it's boring, but it's the most effective use of your time for XP, right? I feel like there's a Soren Johnson quote. He's one of the guys behind Off-World Trading Company. He worked on Civ. He said, like, given the opportunity, players will optimize the fun out of a game. And I feel like it's designers they one of the things they need to do is design the best way to play the game, the most fun way to play the game. And I feel like that applies to life, is like you gotta find a way to align the best use of your time with the most emotionally satisfying use of your time.
That's smart.
You know, because then
Yeah.
it's like, okay, you're getting something done. So for me, like I was talking about Twitch, I get like that sense of connection out of it, right? I get some social interaction out of it.
Is there a name for that? Like the design phenomena that you just mentioned?
I don't think so.
Okay, because I want to write it down.
It's pretty common. If you look at any game, you can usually see that.
Okay, so
there's inconsistencies between the best and the most fun part.
okay.
But like Twitch kind of solves an emotional need for me, connection of like that. So I align that with working on my game, which like makes working on my game exciting. Like I get excited to like get up and work on it. Where it's like, you know, I've been burnt out plenty of times.
No, that's true. No, I'm getting that too a little bit actually. We actually just started a podcast in the game audio training series, and I think that it's actually providing a lot for me to connect with my team more, and also it also like feeds a lot into it allows us to make more YouTube videos. It allows us to like improve the business, and it's a really great kind of. I actually started. So I've been playing a lot of Mario Maker lately, and making horrible levels for my friends is actually like is like a really fun way for me to like spend my time, and that's what I enjoyed. That's what I'm enjoying when I'm doing that. It's like, oh, I'm doing this because I'm doing this for my friends, like kind of thing, and that's cool.
There's a satisfaction out of that, right? Like
so lining up the most optimal and the most emotionally satisfying into one. Okay.
That for me, that's what I mean by hacking is like, just like I said, understanding enough to know that in this situation I do this, in this situation I do that, and like figuring out.
That's really smart.
We're approaching an hour. I want to talk about the audio training series and BlipSounds.
Sure. Yes.
Tell us like a little bit about what it is and kind of how it can help people.
Yeah, sure. So basically the game audio training series is a monthly subscription on BlipSounds, just blipsounds.com. It may or may not be available depending on when Tim releases this. But we basically let it out for 5 days every month, where you can get access to games made by game developers, where you can learn sound design, programming for sounds, integration techniques with Fmod, learning Unity, and you get to learn the basics of a program called Reaper. And we also get to learn like a bunch of cool concepts like thematic sound design, for example, is one where you get to create you create sound effects based off of the theme of what you're creating. So like, you know, if you have like a water spell, you're going to record water sounds for that. Like just a lot of theory, a lot of like technicalities, and then a lot of technical sound design. And then the best part about it is that you have a community of people and you get to make sounds for games and take action and just like start making and start creating. We're working on a couple of live games made by real game developers. And then we also have a bunch of games that the sound designers can pick up and start programming sounds into their games to get portfolio pieces, basically. And then every month we have a little competition where we see who can make the sounds for a game the best. We have a Unity project, and they can download it and program the sounds in themselves and make the sounds from scratch. And then we review the top 5 sound and games, and yeah, so it's really cool. And then weekly group calls. There's a whole bunch of stuff. You can go on BlipSounds.com to read about it.
If I'm a game dev and I want to learn audio, I can join your program. You'll teach me how to make audio for games. I'll be able to work on actual games and contribute audio, and I'll be able to connect with a bunch of other people that do it the same thing.
Correct.
That sounds fun.
Yeah, it's very fun.
That sounds effective, because not to get off subject again, but community seems to be the driving force. We talk about emotional alignment, and the community seems to be the thing that can like get people to stick around and stay and work on build themselves. Having a bunch of other people to connect with that do the same thing.
It's because we have a Discord server that's free, and then we have the one that's part of the game audio training series. The free one is good, but it's a lot more focused to have the paid one for everyone who's involved, because everybody has the same goal, and you're filtering out exactly who is who wants these goals, and yeah, I think it's really helpful in that regard.
Cool. So blipsounds.com.
BlipSounds.com. BLIP sounds.
Any place that people can find you online besides that?
Yeah, they can at BlipSounds for Twitter. We have a Discord server, which is invite.gg/BlipSounds, and then facebook.com/BlipSounds, and then youtube.com/BlipSounds as well.
Cool. Lots of social media properties.
Absolutely. Yeah.
All right, everybody check out those links. They'll be in the description. Say hi to Ryan's channel. Go watch his videos.
Appreciate it.
Stuff on sound and all kinds of stuff. We got into a life philosophical conversation today. But if you want to learn a lot about sound and stuff, he's got all kinds of stuff. And I've been following his stuff for a very long time. So it's been fun. Thank you, Ryan, dude.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Tim.
See ya. Hey, if you want more content like this, I highly recommend you check out the stuff on the rest of the channel. We have all kinds of stuff on game dev, motivation, self-improvement, all kinds of stuff. But if you make games or you want to make games, I highly recommend you join our Discord channel. We have game developers from all over the world, and you can, do your game dev a little less lonely, or you can learn some new skills and meet some new people. So I'll see you there.